Hello, first of all, I would like to say thank you for organizer of the International Conference on Creative Convergence to invite me for this special talk on interactive olfaction design and future opportunities. It's really been a pleasure knowing the organizer and also given the opportunity to present my research in the past 7-8 years. So my name is YanYan. I'm currently located in Singapore and have been working with National University of Singapore in the past few years on my research topic, and graduated from graduate school of media design from Keio University from a collaboration program, and US Keio collaboration lab, the CUTE lab. Before that, prior to that, I've also had a master's degree in interactive telecommunication program from New York University. And I would like to share today what has led me here to not only conducting my PhD research and what has propelled me forward. So in the year of 2014, I had the opportunity of presenting my research in progress at the time at TEI conference, a well-recognized conference for interaction design, human-centered human-computer interaction. And after that, many things, one thing led to another, and I also had the opportunity of exhibiting somewhat my work, as well as coming up with the interactive olfaction toolkit. So today I would like to share my experience of not only about this work, but what has really been the underlying inspirations and what has driven me forward. Currently, I'm an independent researcher and also be part of the organizers for the interactive olfaction community. That is an organization that aims to find collaborators and also researchers, not only from academia, but also from all parts of different industries who are interested in the developments in interactive olfaction. And I would like to just talk a little bit about what have brought me here and what is the future that I'm envisioning. Before we even started talking about the olfactory experience, I'd like to talk about the context and background of my research, which is the evolution of technology-mediated experience. The reality we are living right now, no matter where you work, no matter where you live, the basic fact that we can be all connected together is because it is really inevitable that we are weaving in the digital technology and we are breathing in, and we are also living in the reality of a digital and a virtual world. So no matter where you look, and no matter even if you're not somebody who's working with technology, or even you're not as an interaction designer, you may find that technology is really everywhere, as described by visionary scholar Mark Weiser, and gradually recognized by many pioneers in the area of media design, including Hiroshi Ishii in media lab from MIT, and also the author of Everywhere, who talked about really technology as part of our everyday life, as part of our so-called design material, to really looking at this relationship that we are building between human and technology is not just the infrastructure, but also what our life could be made out of, and the interaction, the quality of the interaction itself. And I will borrow this significant work that was really in the heart of graduates from ITP program from New York University, is this entrance piece where the wooden mirror will capture your image, but rather than showing it as clearly as who you are, it will show a pixelated reflection as this shadow that is created by connected motors. So it was man-made and it was also technologically enabled. However, it has this notion of the technology that we are creating today is no longer a tool, and it's no longer an analogy of a hot hammer in the hands of a human being. However, it becomes an expression, it becomes a new experience where we can build responsive environments that are talking to us and are having conversation with us and can engage us and create this new idea and new notion of connectedness to our everyday experience. So I would like to say that maybe we have never been in this fast speed of transformation that is enabled by technology maybe 20 or 30 years ago, before all these infrastructure even existed, to the reality that we are living now. And that's what we as interaction designers are pushing forward, the boundaries. And how do we create enchantment of technology? How do we see the aesthetics of interaction? And is it possible to build calm technology that kind of give us a interplay between human and technology rather than focusing on the technology itself? And I think that's what has driven me forward as an interaction designer and as an independent researcher, to look at what's not only what's available, but also looking at what sort of value that we are bringing into everyday life, and how can we make things different, and is it possible to create some new experience through the use of technology. And I would like to just open with that and have a look at then, why am I looking into olfactory experience and integrate it into interactive and digital world? So one of the things that really stood out to me as a designer is that olfactory experience is quite unique, and it has the characteristics that is not possessed by other senses. It is able to engage our mind in a completely different way. So as someone who is probably familiar with the neuroscience, I have a little bit of neuroscience background, would be familiar with the dual mind theory, which is we have our thinking mind that kind of assemble and could be replicated by the digital power. The kind of mind that is conscious, the kind of mind that answers questions in an analytical manner and make judgment. But the everyday that we are living in may not be all composed of this very conscious and planning, having the planning ahead. And the world we are living in, the granularity of the raw material that we interact with, and the people-to-people connections may come from our doing mind. The other part of our mind that is, work with our subconsciousness and would assign meaning and value to sensorial stimuli. And when you're looking at a picture, it's not as simple as just 0 and 1, just the digital experience, but rather it carries meaning. It may speak to you in a very personal way, and it will make memories. And this is the way we connect how our mind is wired differently when we are exposed to olfactory experience. When we smell something, the most famous example in Marcel Proust literature is to relive the memory, and by narrating the smell experience of a Madeleine in the tea, it brings the whole memory into his mind and unveils the story and narratives that his lengthy novels carry. It's basically a documentary of sensations, a documentation of not just the facts, but also the feelings, the emotions, and the unconscious mind that was associated with the olfactory experience. And it is only with smell, with olfactory, that we could immediately access to our unconscious mind. And this is where I have started in 2012, is looking at how our mind works, and the way we interact with smell is really different to the traditional senses, the senses that we are familiar with, the audio, the video, and all of the traditional media, we have to recognize that when we are working with a different sense, or a secondary sense, so to speak, we are accessing a different part of our brain when we are designing interactions with users. And when we're working with olfactory, it also brings different challenges. So I would like to show one of the examples, the early investigation, the early kind of studies I've conducted. I have conducted some of the interviews with perfumers who's working with smell, and some of the things that strike me is to them, perfume is not just a symbol or a expensive commercial product, but rather an excellent perfumer will tell you that it has and it carries a narrative. It changes over time. It is designed with the change in mind. Although it exists in a static bottle, they have created perfume evolve over time. You know, the basic idea of having the top note, have the base note, have the is based on the volatility of the substance and how it leaves your skin, and the residue of the material, and it will change over time. When I have learned the basics and the language of how you create smell, that kind of changed the way I think about this medium. And we would often use the analogy of, in colors, we have red, blue, and green, and what are the basic components of smell? And the answer is not short. So let's have a look at this. So when I started giving out these smell samples to participants, for them to blend the smells together, and the way the smells were blended together is through a aromatic diffuser. So basically what they do is putting this diffuser very close to the liquid examples that allows the aroma to vaporize, and basically as in the form of a vapor, they will be stimulated by the different samples of aroma. The task was asking them to create something that speaks to them and to just combine different smells together in the act that resembles a perfumer, but only that we are using an average everyday user in this case. So what they came back with was these abstract themes that they have named themselves. So for example, they created fresh breeze theme with the smell of jasmine and salt air. And that reminds the person of very pure healing and relaxing feelings. Just notice how these kind of feelings are very personal and really speak to them in a very personal manner. And this is the material that we are working with, this sort of olfaction experience that can instantly gives you recall into your most intimate feelings. And it's something that cannot be replicated. And it's something that if a different person experience it would have a completely different description and a memory of its own. So with these simple materials, for example, we have used aroma of chocolate, and we've made just the coffee to be diffused, and we've dissolved herbal oil, the water dilutable essential oil in the liquid form to be diffused. So it came back with these very abstract and yet very descriptive personal memories, and the different ways that just the fact that they are really drawn to blending with different smell to create a memory of their own and be able to tell the story and be able to play with it. This kind of interaction was really speaking to me at the very beginning. And it really shows the very strong narrative capacity of smells to evoke mental imagery. So basically what this theme is, the fresh breeze with the home and the healing, relaxing feeling, the bliss theme that reminds the person of their country cottage, the early morning and calming effect, is what we called in neuroscience, what is called the mental imagery. So there is some literature surrounding that. Is the way that smells speak to us, and it's the way that we interact with smells in a very raw kind of human to human levels. So in my research and in my first prototype, I really went in to explore with that and having this sense of material in my mind, and how do I create something that doesn't lose the granularity of olfactory experience, would also just engage our mind. And it is an interactive experience that we are creating, but it is also imaginations and the mental imagery that is really the driver behind all these creations. So what I had proposed and led me to create was these collection of smart devices with lighting and smell. So the quality of these abstract meanings really speaks to me, and that's why I chose a combination of smell as well as lighting, so that there is a certain poetic dimension of these interactions that was preserved throughout the creation of that interaction. So what you are seeing now is a smart device, scented pebbles. Standalone, it composed of two different aroma containers, which could be triggered individually. So by putting them together, they can be connected wirelessly and create this special blend, if you will, or a special theme that allows people to really play and really explore what are the different kind of smells. They may explore with the gestural activations, and later on you will see that there is this scenario where all these devices are connected together and create a dynamic ambience overall. Later shown in the TEI conference, these connected devices allow people to create an ambience of its own, and allows them to explore different kind of smell by gesture triggers. Like if you tilt object itself, it will create different scents. Connected together, it also create these various sequence and different sequence of smells could be replayed. So for example, in the earlier study that we've shown, if you make your own choice of the different choice of smells, for example, you can create your very personal theme, and all these kind of smells are being triggered and activated at different times. So there is this notion of changes over time, and you will be able to personalize the choice of the smells as well as the entire interaction. So after the exhibitions, I went on to explore how scented pebbles could be used in different contexts to really convey different meanings and be used to support different kind of experience. And by connecting them to our everyday objects, these objects through Zigbee with various sensors. So by connecting it to a pressure sensor that was embedded in a sofa, for example, I'm able to create this scenario where an employee in a collaboration space would need her personal space and personal time. So she would come up to the scented pebbles and she would lie down, and once the system has sense that someone is relaxing in the space, it will create a sequence of smell that is neutral and that allow her to kind of enjoy the dynamic ambience. And this is one way that the scented pebble could be used, is to be pre-programmed with various smells that can be coordinated and create this pre-programmed ambience. And it can also be used to support social interactions in the co-working space. So during my research, one of collaboration space came up to see the prototype and was very curious to explore how this kind of interactive devices could be used to enhance the social interactions. So I've proposed a scenario whereby the synchronized actions, for example, putting the cups down together on a smart coaster, and this would create a synchronization of lighting pattern and activations of smells from both pebbles. And it was interesting for not just one person that you see in the previous example, but two people to come together and interact and have conversations and have this lighted interactions in a space that was empty and that was lacking an element of social interactions and lacking this this level of anything that allows them to play. So scented pebbles was a kind of experiment for them to be introduced to this casual olfaction experience that can be injected into a workspace and can be this sort of light playfulness can be injected into our work life and into our personal space. And that's how you see these play out in those scenarios. Another interesting example would also be to look at how scented pebbles are able to support exploring and ordering experience in a commercial cafe. And it's through the interviews with the cafe owners and service providers and vendors that we really came up with some interesting scenarios. And oftentimes they would like the atmosphere to be reflecting of what a drink represents. So special ambience could be designed when the customer is ordering the food, and even they can design their own ambience based on their own preferences. So this gives them a way of designing their personal space, so to speak, without a heavy investment on the space itself, but by introducing these interactive objects. So I think what this allowed me to do is really looking at how versatile scented pebble could be, and what are the various scenarios that I could create. And for me to really envision the future of our olfaction experience. And in a way, we're not just looking at olfaction and the functionality, the technology, the infrastructure, but rather we are looking at what are the different kind of experience we can create. Some of the learning points from this PhD research is for me to see the dynamic programming of smell ambience can be sufficiently delivered by what's available, and by the integration of microchips, by the integration of remote sensors, and by the integration of digital diffusers. In a way, everything is readily available but dispersed in a way. So the project is a way for me to really integrate everything together, to look at how can smell be programmed, how can ambience be programmed, and how could interactive smell be supporting different kind of experience. How does it add value to in a various way in our everyday life? And it is certain that throughout the exhibition and throughout the conversation with different kind of service provider, they are very much drawn to smell as a way to see the enchantment of technology. The fact that the smell is being delivered through digital device, and the fact that we are able to control and change smell for it to be a personalized experience speaks to them a great deal. However, it also gives rise to a lot of challenges. For example, the fact that it's a very subjective experience, the fact that everybody can create their own version, adds another level of challenge when we are evaluating the experience. And then another challenge in a way is when we are creating applications, what are the readiness level of the prototype? At some point when I'm having multiple iterations of the prototype, the challenge was the form and material becomes an obstacle in itself, and kind of restricted in a way because it has its own tonality in a sense. It has its own expressions to exist in a spa-like environment and space. So that kind of give me something to work on in the next round when we are looking at just interactive experience without the restriction of the material. So what we are looking at, what I'm looking at in the next phase of scented pebbles is really having a very basic platform that designers or researchers or people who are interested in olfactory experience would be free to explore different areas and different industries. And it's throughout this showing of prototype, I've had ideas and I've had invitation to look into the different industry. And when we are looking at well-being, hospitality, and education, I think the way scented pebble embody this kind of olfactory experiences could be embraced very differently when we are designing something for the healthcare. It could be the same infrastructure and we could add different applications, but the way it's being manifested doesn't have to be the form and material that was expressed through scented pebble itself.
So that leads me to think about the possibility of extending the scented pebble into an interactive olfaction toolkit that is connected with the everyday objects through the Zigbee or wireless network. And this capability to support the interaction with various objects on the network allow us to explore different contexts and different applications. When we are looking at this toolkit, it's really about building the connectivity to everyday objects, which could be, pressure sensor on a coaster that allow them to explore the scenario in a dining situation, and interactivity with the smart furnitures, or just simply placing the pressure sensor onto sofas or other furniture items, and also allow us to interact with the other ambient and environment variables such as temperatures or lightings that could create interesting scenarios in a home environment and in a built-in space. The choice of connectivity also allow us to connect it to the personal digital gadgets through the wearable sensors, and by also connecting the toolkit to the network, they are no longer restricted to the number of devices, but they can be expanded to create a network of diffusers, and that can expand the capability of how many different smells that you can connect it to. This video demo shows interactive olfaction toolkits in action, and the single module could be connected to the cloud together, to the network together with the other multiple modules to release scent. And what you can see here is the programming of two different aroma being released one after another, depending on the actual application of use, how long each aroma is released for, and what is the trigger of each aromas. These can be easily reconfigured. So it was with the intention that designers and researchers, or even the practitioners from other industry background, will be able to easily grasp the idea and be able to see the possibility of building interactive olfaction design. So let's have a look at the process, result, as well as learnings from the recent studio at TI conference again, is to look at how we can build for real context and applications to integrate this sort of interactive olfactions into the real lives of people, and how it could create actual value, by inviting the participants to talk a little bit about the different smell samples that we've asked them to bring to the workshop. And among them, you can find fresh flowers, from the conference venue, and you can find like saffron that represent someone's cultural identity and background, and you can find baby clothing and books in the old store. So these are kind of objects and materials that inspire conversation among the researchers to get in touch with the smell itself, and not forgetting that we are working with a very unique medium. And by showing them what has been built previously, that also gave them the confidence of creating the interactive experience within the workshop. And what we are asking them to do is, before they embark on the prototyping, thinking about how and when these interactive olfaction experience is happening, and think about the different contexts and think about the different applications they want to create. The value of olfaction interactions could be elevated and could be expressed through their design. So for example, through the conversation with the participant, one of the things that as a group they have wanted to work on is this idea of family bond and how to enhance the remote communication, taken that theme to look at different ways how we can use scent and the storage of different kind of scent to represent family heritage, and how it could be really prototypes through the use of the interactive tools that we have provided. So by introducing the interactive olfaction design toolkits, they get a better understanding of how they can build the interactive experience, and that really give them the confidence to create a network of aromas, not just confined to be restricted by what they know that can be done, but really exploring the different tangible forms the aroma containers, and imagining different ways and different forms that it could take, reminiscence. And this project really embraced the physical form of the storage of aroma units, and how it can be organized in the form of a scented album. It is these toolkits, and it is this conversation on the value of olfaction experience that give rise to the final manifesting of these prototypes. So what this particular project aims to accomplish is to store smell samples to represent an important family event to remember. And the smell sample storage are designed as part of the ring, and they could be also rearranged together when multiple samples are available, and be made into a personalized necklace that also function as scented collection that could be portable and carry around. So the smell units can be taken off from the accessory and play or diffuse directly from the smell scented album. At the same time, it can also print some suggestions and notes by sensing which smell was being played. So the interactive olfaction design toolkit really inspired the mechanism and the design of scent albums, and how it can be made into a wearable piece. Another exciting project that came out from this one-day workshop is to enable remote family communication and connectedness through the scent. And what you found from this project is that the networking capability of these aroma units being expressed and being used. And it really allows them to think through what are the possible scenarios of family members trying to send a message remotely when one of the family members are traveling. And participants use the interactive olfaction design toolkits as a design material to construct their interaction scenarios in a one-day workshop. So it is this possibility of making this interaction real that inspire them to really go on and try to build a model house and try to see how they can play out the interactions and be able to show to other team members and be able to tell the stories. So it is idea that in a family situation, they can send special scent signals to others at the key moments in the house. And then with the sensing capability, we will be able to capture the moment before the kids going to sleep and when the light condition is going down. So they were actually able to prototype the whole scenario of integrating the lighting sensor into this model house, which is remotely connected to the diffusers that triggers the release of scent during the sleeping and waking time, so that they can create a special moment of a special ambience that is delivered to their loved ones. And it is with the notion of showing the capability of programming multiple scents and building the interactive olfaction design to the researchers or designers or interested parties who wants to take part in the co-development of the scenario of these applications, but without the tools or without the prior experience in how to, the know-how. So this inspired me to really think about how to bring the knowledge and bring the toolkits to others, to create conversation and to make connections happen and to create collaborations. It didn't immediately happen, but after we've talked to a few interesting developers in this area, we hosted the first series of online sharing session in the location of Sydney, Singapore, Tokyo, Berlin, and Macau, and was interested in this pandemic situation that we were able to connect everyone in the same platform. So we featured 3 speakers in our first online sharing session. So we had these very interesting speakers to share their experience in building the olfaction future, and in an unofficial platform that allows them to ask questions and create conversations. And we had also participants from a German research institute, as well as some of the local companies in Singapore. That on the day of the workshop, we also had someone who has been developing the solution for IoT devices. So let me just take you through of what their projects were and to have a glimpse of what the sharing session was. So Caroline was someone who are using her design of fashion pieces, incorporating the delivery of olfaction wearable, olfaction scents, to think about the opportunity for performances and social implications of these kind of wearable pieces. It is, her work is very refreshing in the way that she was examining the social aspect of wearables to think about creating personal space, creating creating a scented space in a public space, and could there be conflicts? Could there be tensions as a consequence? And also the fact that she has brought in her experience from fashion design into making the garments and special aesthetics that she has created. So instead of using digital diffusers in her piece, she was using Viper pipes to create these smoking effects and also performance pieces. And it was interesting as a way of going forward to have conversation on whether it's possible to create connected wearable pieces for her performance. So in terms of performances, usually it's confined in a certain theater space, and it will be interesting how the wearer of these pieces is aware of, and has control of the different scents they are diffusing, and be able to interact not just with the audience, but be able to interact with the other connected devices that can be planted into the theater space. So that gives her more dimensions to think about when she is designing the next performance using the olfaction wearables. With Priscilla, she had extensive experience with building VR installations, and the value of using olfaction experience is really to engage the audience on a different level, give them a sense of reality. So in one of her work, I remember particularly is by retelling the story of Red Riding Hood. And in that story, when the user is navigating in the gallery space, they can also follow the clue of scents so that the story could be recreated in their mind. So the smell of the woods, the smell of specific environment were brought into the gallery space to give the experience of immersive experience to that particular art piece. It is very interesting how you marry VR or AR with the olfaction experience, and it's kind of in a unique, in unconventional way, because when we are talking about VR experience, sometimes it's in a gaming scenario, and for her interpretation and her execution of the piece, it's about reducing the other elements, and by bringing in the smell, you could reconstruct the stories by reducing the other visual elements into the minimum, and there is a sensibility of how a different story could be created, and in a different realm than just looking through the stories in the VR. So VR experience is quite a vision intensive experience. But in Priscilla's work, you can see that a lot of the visual element is being minimized, and the users are given clues so that they can kind of recall their personal encounter of these classical stories, or building their own scenarios in their mind. So there is a very interesting connection between how we can engage our imaginary mind in her direction of how the AR experience is implemented. A company called Aroma Join that develops these very matured products that allows so they are also working with designers and researchers to see what are the possible applications that can be built with their products, but their delivery methods and also the final packaging of the products is quite interesting in the way that they are also thought about connected devices. They have also thought about how the cartridge system could be designed in a portable way. So, and they are also moving into the lightweight, the portable device that they can enter into the wearable space for future development. So it's really interesting to see the various connections between different projects and also connection to my previous research, and be able to imagine the future of interactive olfaction design. We're no longer at the stage where, at the beginning, we are talking about smell being a possible representation of information. That was really groundbreaking work by Joseph Keio. And later on, we had interesting work that brings to the attention of autobiographical recall and the users being able to make use of these smells to search for images, and also making the ambient awareness of notifications available. So all these work are very interesting, but right now, when we are integrating all these developments and different experiences, and when we're talking about performance and minimizing the visual element in the AR experience, we are really looking at an entirely different experience that can be afforded by incorporating olfaction experience as one of the key things for interactions. So we are, if you look at this diagram, we are really moving from a technology-focused reality into the space of experience design, and also how we can engage with our mind in a different way when we are designing olfactory experience. So some of the emerging trends that I would like to mention before I close off is, it is interesting how many of the applications were looking at wellness as a possible outlet for olfaction design. The fact that we'll be able to use scent to regulate our emotions has inspired a lot of productions, and also a lot of paper publications in this area. So if you are looking at wearable pieces, it might worth looking at the existing work by Tilson, and she has been in the development of the wearable delivery system for more than a decade. And also the newer work from MIT was also looking at the on-face interface, by minimizing the microchips, by minimizing the infrastructure for smell delivery. They are looking at sensing the biological data and regulate our emotions through the interventions of the smells. So those are very interesting work to look at. Also mentioning that there is a upcoming workshop in Kai that is related to smell and taste, and it's organized by Marian Obrist, who has been organizing many workshops in this area, has been looking at narratives of smells. And there is also another direction that is related to olfactory experience that I'm paying attention to, that is the digitizing the smell and taste. So without actually, without the actual substance, they'll be able to kind of simulate the smell and taste by using electrodes, and but the research is quite interesting to look at this interface, this kind of hybrid human and technology, and how could we look at the smell and taste experience entirely differently in a different space. So could we move everything into a virtual and digital experience? And again, is this the future we are envisioning? So there are different directions to how the future is being envisioned right now. So I would encourage anyone who is not only interested in olfactory design, but also looking at building the digital future, and also bring back the nostalgic nature of smell, and creating refreshing design and creating refreshing projects and research that is looking at how can we build this relationship between the human and technology, and what are we removing away from our human experience versus what are we adding onto the digital experience. And I would like to end with that, and also mention that a lot of what I have talked about will be shared onto the interactive Olfaction website that is coming up, looking at online platform as a way to connect to potential collaborators. So it's a pleasure to talk to all of you and be able to share further on about the toolkits, and we are open to conducting workshops that can guide the students and researchers who are interested in the field and who are looking into olfaction for inspiration.